distinct honor as Dr. Dream to introduce our next speaker. I'm having fun introducing all the speakers, but this particular speaker has a place very close to my heart. And I met Laura Eisenhower about a year and a half ago. I invited her to be a guest on a radio program that I have. And one thing led to another, and she was flying in from a conference from Philadelphia, and I picked her up at the airport, LAX, and we pulled just out of the airport, I think a Denny's parking lot, and we did the interview in the front seat of the car. And I was not so familiar with Laura Eisenhower, and I was blown away. Absolutely blown away. The passion and the dedication and the commitment that this woman has for our planet is beyond anything I have ever experienced from anyone else I've ever met. She is a global alchemist. She's an international speaker. She does the most amazing readings of anyone I've ever met. And what really stands out and cannot truly be labeled at all is the depth of her heart space for the entire collective and for this planet. And I couldn't be more pleased to introduce the love of my life, Laura Eisenhower.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is just such a profound event. I've been talking to a lot of people here and there, just saying this is probably the most important one I've done, because a lot of people will say, you know, I haven't seen UFOs or ETs, and some things just don't make much sense, but we can all say that we do see something up in the sky. And it's funny that a lot of people still deny it, but at least it's a little easier than some of the topics. But this really pulls up the veil. It really uproots everything that's behind this, everything that's underneath it, and everything that it's connected to. So I'm just really grateful to have a chance to bring my information forward. Because we are the consciousness. We are the consciousness beyond chemtrails. We're the ones that are willing to look at it. We know our energy is beyond it. We know that we are assisting other people in moving through to the other side of all of this. But we're already there, and that's the beauty. So I'm going to get started here. And we're starting with timelines, because timelines is really the path that we're walking. It's the energy that we empower. It's our belief systems. It's what we choose to align to. And the organic ascension timeline, in a sense, has been hijacked by these artificial timelines and agendas, these dark agendas, this mass competition to play the role of God and absolutely separate us from nature and our connection to our truth and higher awareness. But I'm going to share some disturbing stuff, but just so everybody knows that I'm here to empower the positive timeline. I do not accept defeat. Nothing can take down the organic ascension timeline, even if it's not always organic because of these agendas. It's about our consciousness and our divine power. And we must never underestimate what it is capable of. It is absolutely capable of transmuting, creating the alchemy that is necessary, and lifting us into a reality that we all know is in front of us. Now, we'll start with the New World Order agenda, which we are obviously very aware of. So our United States government is no longer a government of, by, and for the people. The United States government, as with all other major governments of the world, is under the total domination and control of the Illuminati, architects of the so-called New World Order. So we know this. We're not dealing with a normal government at all. That's why I don't vote. That's why I don't think I've ever really voted. And I don't say that lightly, because being a part of the Eisenhower family, that's kind of a bold statement. I think, you know, a lot of people thought I'd be groomed for politics, or I would be all about government. But, you know, the warning of the military-industrial complex and how much Eisenhower did not like war just really hit me hard, and it really connected with an awareness of why I chose this family and why I'm doing what I'm doing today. And he's been a very strong ally of mine. He's my great-grandfather. I never got a chance to meet him, but as a child, when I was tuning into what my mission was, his presence was there. The Christ energy was there. Some beings were there, and they're all really just strengthening me and preparing me for what I was going to be up against. And they majorly made it clear that everything would be torn away from me. They would try and take me away, and to refuse to ever let go of my truth. And so that's why I stand so strong in the positive timeline, because that's who I am, and that's why I'm here. So as far as our wonderful government goes, cancel, clear, delete, there are certain reptilian groups behind the Illuminati. They have no desire to advance higher. Their aim is to prevent the Earth and humanity in general from making the shift into multi-dimensional paradise. What a great life calling. I mean, really, it's like, I just can imagine them sitting around just coming up with the next thing that they can possibly do to screw our lives up. And here's one of them, of course, and this is why we're here, the Chemtrail Agenda. One of, connected to many different agendas. It's all, you know, connected. We're starting to see disturbing alliances in our government. Obama appoints Monsanto's VP as senior advisor to the FDA. And look at their, look at that smile, like, Monsatan, yeah. And transhumanism agenda, artificial mortality and an enslaved race. And artificial immortality, that's because they can only utilize technology in order to stay alive. This is how they want to choose their life cycle. Instead of going on the ascension path and connecting on a natural level to source and spirit, they're using technology to stay alive so that they can run this time loop and be in this 3D matrix, able to escape death through technology, through downloading their brains into other bodies, moving their souls and jumping from here to there, escaping the whole cosmic law and the whole karmic reality of what, you know, facing what they're doing. So artificial immortality would cause, of course, an enslaved race because they are using these technologies and throwing us into this artificial matrix where we are not, you know, rising in our abilities and understanding the natural process of initiating ourselves into our natural blooming on the ascension timeline, but are plugged into a machine in this sort of new world order where emotions and feelings and soul and the uniqueness of who we are is pulled into a collective machine in order to serve those that wish to stay immortal in an artificial way. So, in the genocide agenda, wanting to wipe out what seems to be undesirable, only the balancing act of nature should decide who lives and dies, no one else. I mean, we're dealing with an organism here. We're dealing with Gaia, Mother Earth. It's an organism just like the human body. And for it to function and be in balance, you know, it like the human body would, you know, decide what should stay and what should go, just like we do when we ingest food, when we're dealing with bacteria and viruses coming at us, and when we're dealing with energy, our physical body decides what works for us, what maintains balance. And it's not about judgment, it's not about punishment, it's about natural law. And so anybody who has the arrogance to pick and choose who should stay and who should go is absolutely out of alignment with that, and that's part of the artificial timeline agenda. We're dealing with agendas that were established during the Eisenhower administration due to communications with the Zeta Greys, called Alternative 1, 2, and 3. Now, Alternative 2 was the establishment of underground bases. Alternative 3 was the establishment of off-planet colonies, like Mars colony. If anybody has seen my work or knows my story, I was recruited to go to a Mars colony in 2006. And so this is all part of the secrecy, and you know, a lot of people don't know about this stuff. I will. Time travel and teleportation is another one that's covered up, we don't hear about. And the thing is, we're dealing with a time loop. We're dealing with sort of a fixed time loop that can be traveled along. It's kind of always repeating itself. This dense physical world is caught in a manufactured time loop in which time is a circle constantly repeating itself. What we need to do is break the time circle and thus the prison. The reptilians are doing everything they possibly can to prevent this. All these agendas, including the microchip chip, are how. They want to stay immortal as our masters via technology. But who said the law of one does not still apply? We have, you know, the service to self and the service to others. This is a huge piece in our ascension process, is to decide what we're orientated to. And we do have a choice. So whatever they're trying to do is more about infiltrating us and bringing us into their mindset so that we act as agents, or we are so dumbed down to the point where we're living in such a lower consciousness that we can't ascend because we're not raising our frequency to our higher self, our higher awareness, our integrity, and we sort of let ourselves be desensitized to the point where we are not even able to move beyond. But that's where we still have choice. So this time, this period that we're in right now in 2012, is a time where everything's aligning with the galactic plane. Earth, Venus, and the Sun will be in alignment December 21st. We've had a powerful Venus transit June 5th. And so this is where the time loop opens and we have the opportunity to move beyond it. And that's why these agendas are really getting intense right now, because this is a chance for a lot of us to lift off, and they want to have as many souls as possible, because the harvesting of souls is what gives them power. They rely on our power to run their system. So the Mars agenda. I was recruited to go to Mars. I refuse to go. I will never be one of them. Doing the right thing is the only way, even if it might cost you your life. They care about survival of the flesh for themselves. We need to care about evolution of the soul. That's a huge reason why I didn't go. It was set up for me to be a protective measure. I would be given this great position, and we need to get off planet because of cataclysms and all this stuff happening. And I didn't know a lot about what I know now when I was up against this agenda, but every red flag under the sun hit me because I was very prepared as a child. One of the red flags was, oh yeah, I remember it being communicated to me that they're going to try and take me away and destroy everything I'm about. So when this came across, I knew that this was not something I wanted to be a part of. I didn't really fully understand the deeper layers of it. I didn't really fully grasp how deep this agenda is, because I was set up with an agent who I didn't know was an agent. I just thought, he just wants to go to Mars and I'm, his date. What I found out 6 months into the relationship was he was specifically sent to take me. And so, yeah, that might have been protective on a physical level. Maybe I would have survived some sort of cataclysm, but I will never, ever, ever be one of them. They tried to do this to Eisenhower. Rockefeller brought him into the presidency, giving him this great leadership position, and look what happened. He had 8 heart attacks, and he gave us a warning about the military-industrial complex. So Mars is a little bit far away to give any warnings to humanity, and so I'm here to serve, and my heart's in the right place, and so whatever happens to me on a physical level doesn't matter, because that's what they want us to fear. They want us to fear death. They want us to lock us into survival. They want us to forget about how important it is just to be a good person, just to care about our global family, and to serve one another in this planet. That is number one. That is how we evolve on a soul level. This meat suit, is a garment that we're wearing, and their whole obsession with the survival of that meat suit and their ability to stay alive within that is not where we need to be. We need to be concerned about not being controlled, not how long we're going to live, because eventually, as we're doing right now, we're lifting the veils between life and death. And once we lift those veils, we're able to come and go into the physical as we please, and that's how it used to be. That's how it used to be thousands and thousands of years ago, and that's what we're returning to. And unfortunately, most of humanity could care less, and they're just... So the looking glass technologies were part of how I was targeted for this recruitment. They're able to look into the past and look into the future. So they were able to target a relationship that I had in a past life in order to set me up with somebody that I would have a natural affinity towards. They can't see anything past 2012. These technologies cannot read anything past 2012. So this is a critical period for them to poison us, dumb us down, create this sort of reverse grid so that the planet will spin in the wrong direction and create this inversion that a lot of the sacred symbols represent as being inverted, like the pentagram. So all these agendas want to take as many souls as possible before this time is reached. They are afraid of losing us and our awakening because they require us. We're like their battery power. So I found it interesting that they can't read anything past 2012. Similar to when I was in Mexico City and I saw the Aztec calendar and they didn't really know what was going to happen after the 5th sun. This was in the early 90s, and this is when I really made a conscious decision about my mission. Even though it started when I was 6, this was when I really started to understand that we are the creators. We get to decide what's going to happen after this. So I made a big statement on myself, drew some maps just so I wouldn't forget, because I wasn't around anybody who could relate, that really mapped out just the return of the goddess energy, the alchemy of connecting with the 4 elements and the 5th element spirit to lift these inversions and bring them upright again and create that alchemy, which is what the whole underworld journey is about and what the Venus energy is all about. And so the Venus transits that the Mayans understood are a part of this process. So yeah, that basically this is what they want, as we know, a prison planet. Where did this all come from, though? Like, what is the motivation behind this? Why? Well, once all was in harmony, the reptilians who were in a ruling position were in harmony with the higher dimensional beings. When they felt that they gained the trust of humans enough, they thought they could defeat the higher dimensional beings. That is when they began to crossbreed with humans. And see, we hear this story, it's kind of paralleling in other names and groups like the Anunnaki. And the thing is, the pleroma, which is the Godhead, which has aeons and archons, in a sense, birthed itself in order to understand itself. And as the dimensions started to come out, like the aeons and then the archons, the copy would weaken as you go down the dimensional ladder. We're pretty much in the lowest one. But the blueprints are very similar, except when you get down to the bottom, they've kind of hijacked those archetypes. They use them in ritual. They invoke gods and goddesses that actually don't want to harm us. But that's sort of how they harvest energy. They use that black sun vril energy. And, but there's no communication there as far as the relationship between these beings and the deities that they serve. It's just a part of the ritual in order to steal the power. And if anybody's studied, the Nag Hammadi or anything Gnostic related, that's what they do to Sophia, is they rob her light, they take her energy, and so we're calling it back. And this is what the agenda of the exile of the divine feminine is all about, which is a huge, crucial missing link. So, I could, read all this, but just to give people an idea, because we're dealing with origins a little bit. Like I was talking about, we have source energy, we have aeons, we have the Christ Sophia blueprint of the masculine and feminine, the grand central sun, the angels, and the archons. Archons are fallen angelic races. They become reptilian that have ruling positions. Then they crossbreed hybrids. It changed those that they bred with into a reptilian mindset, and they served as their overlords. So when there's sort of this cutting off of the higher dimensional energies of source energy, and the reptilians decide to have that ruling position and they start to interbreed, then that mindset is looking to them as their gods and the beings that they worship. And this veil is cast. The goddess energy is veiled, the primordial parents, the divine masculine and feminine, the Shiva Shakti energy, and our connection to it, all veiled, so that we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, needing to serve something in order to have power. But we get the lowest level of it. We get the distortion of religion. So the reptilian and other entities that are manipulating our world by possessing human bodies operate in frequencies between the third and fourth densities. It is from here that they police our vibrational prison, the matrix, and seek to addict and restrict us to the dense physical senses. That's what we get from everything we're bombarded with, just to lower our consciousness, to program the way we view each other, to insert all sorts of distortions in the masculine and feminine dynamics, to distort our body image, to make the most ridiculous things seem important, and our priorities are all screwed up. So the infiltration of higher races took place as they began to intervene. So in a sense, when there was intervention, the rescue mission, in order to help people return to connecting to the true source, they infiltrated those higher races. And that's why we hear about, the Pleiadians that are, bred with, and the Aryans are created, and they're used because, the Nordics and their psychic abilities, they're infiltrated in order to be used against us. The exile of the goddess and the tribes that honored the goddess resulted, and so that kind of all gets wiped off the map. All the wisdom keepers and the ones that have, held this truth, we don't hear about. Our shamans are considered crazy. Our elders don't remember their children's name because they have Alzheimer's. It's not in connection with nature in the mainstream. Everything changed during that time. Tiamat split into many aspects. This brought about the planetary body Gaia. I could go into that. I could spend days on all this, so I'm going to try and, move through this. The fallen seraphim is the Lucifer energy, and the ancient wars with Lyra, they made agreements with the Dracos directed by the Luciferian agenda. So basically, the Luciferian agenda uses the reptilian race in order to sort of move that agenda through them, because the agenda is basically willfulness. It's about being stronger and higher, not higher, but in control of things, that there's the ability to escape cosmic law, and it's all about willfulness, about getting one's way, about control and dominance. Nobody needs to answer to a creator because of this, and so they try and pull people in, and I'll talk more about it. So there was a Sophia fall, and she morphed into the physical body Gaia. And in a sense, this is a part of the protective mechanism and why the Venus energy works so closely with her. In fact, the two are very much aspects of each other. And that's where we see the underworld journey to regenerate and to keep the flow of nature going with the opposition of this artificial matrix. So the fall and Elohim intervention happened, and then the Anunnaki, which are those who came from heaven, are sort of a mix. There's a duality there. Some have sort of been possessed by that Luciferian reptilian mindset of control, and others, like Enki and Inanna, have been holding on to the concept of enlightening the masses in order for everything to fall into place, rather than behavior modification and control in order to bring a desired result, which is two very different types of Venus energy. People associate Venus with Lucifer, but that's the false light of Venus, because it's all about the inversion and the pentagram going downward, so that matter and the physical rules us, like survival and disease and poverty, unless we choose to be greedy. But the true light of Venus is all about that alchemy, the morning and evening star, which is what the upright pentagram represents, and what Inanna represented on the Venus path, which is the true light of spirit, the divine light, where it's not about lower base pleasures and addictions and greed. It's about love. It's about the true Venus energy, which is love, not material possession and that sort of false pleasure. The guardian races, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, and Sirians, I consider like the immune system. We're dealing with an organism. The best way we can relate to it is seeing it in terms of, we have, the disease, the parasitic sort of vampire forces that use energy to control, and then we have, the light. We have the thing that keeps it in balance, that is able to restore. And we know that this is the intelligence of nature. Anytime we cut ourselves, the body knows to form a scab. We don't need to tell it to do that. It's the mind control that shifts us out of that awareness so that we're plugging into something else, so that our natural ability to heal and create this alchemy is stunted because our minds have lost connection. And that's the illusion. We can never be disconnected from spirit, but our minds can believe we are and start to buy into this false matrix, lower God creation, which is false. So the Lucifer and Reptilian agenda, that's basically the Archons. The Archons sort of possess these forces because they're sort of disembodied, I guess you could say. They feed off of us with fear, and they're all about control. Like I said, they exist in the 4th, 5th, 6th dimension. They're attempting to put humanity in its holographic prison and keep us in 3-strand DNA, 3rd dimension. The demons want to create biological robots to embody, to escape hell and rule by turning Earth to hell. So basically, in these rituals, and I'll get more into that later, because for some people, to jump right into that level of darkness is a little much. You're like, chemtrails, and like, okay, she's going really into this. But they're invoking a lot of these demonic energies from the Great Flood and sort of the misuse of energy and power. And so they're trying to raise that energy to embody these sort of gray, cloned, biological entities, and there are real grays, but there's a whole other thing happening too, so that they can embody them and work through them because they can't take the physical flesh in the way that they used to. This agenda is to use them to create negative polarity on the planet. The Anunnaki. Although there's a division amongst the reptilians, they do work together if necessary to achieve the same goal in 3D. The stronger ones rule the weaker ones with fear, of course. So when we're dealing with reptilians, there's more than one race. They kind of battle amongst their ranks. Some came first, some came after, and the whole thing is this entitlement, who should have power. But we seem to forget the mother, who does not choose which child, if it's the second child or third child that's born that has any more entitlement over the first. That's all, a farce. We're dealing with a human body that has organs, liver, heart, lungs. To me, it's like star systems, different and diverse, but all encased in the oneness of creation. And they all have to work together for the body to function. If the liver all of a sudden competed with the lungs, or, when we're out of balance and out of whack, that's exactly what happens. And so our universe is a functioning organism that should all work together like the human body, but it's at war with each other because it refuses to connect with the source because of this veil, and it's almost forgotten that the true creator holds that balance, holds that unity consciousness, and that's what we need to return to, because that is what's going to stop this agenda. So Enki, to guide humanity through enlightenment, Enlil was all about the behavior modification and mind control, which is what we're seeing now. And it's kind of like this dueling brother theme that we see, the Lucifer and Christ, the Cain and Abel, the Osiris and Set, sort of like, competing interests. And then we have Inanna, the Venus path, the mother womb. It's that underworld journey, and it connects to archetypes Actually, Sophia is, the original, and these are different aspects of her. So we see it in connection to Sophia, Persephone, Magdalene, Isis, and other archetypes. And they all kind of go through the same sort of journey, the underworld journey, and it's connected to kind of reincarnation in a way. It's the ability to die and come back again in order to purify the mother womb, in order to kick out the gatekeepers and the techno-controls, and to stand in our power. Because if we don't stand in our power, something else is going to come in and stand there for us. And that's what's happening right now. So many people are completely disconnected. And so there's something else that's going to say, hey, if you're not going to stand in there, I'll stand in there for you. And that's why possession is so easy. That's why our government officials are all possessed. Their personality nature is orientated to bringing in that energy because they're already greedy, they already want power, they already want control. So it makes them very easy to work with. Whereas beautiful souls, kind souls work with spirit guides and angelic beings, and they basically seem to be one of them as well. So it's what we choose to align to. So the goddess energy, Sophia, she's the embodiment of the matriarchal energy that comes from the grand central sun, which gave life to all things, also called the Black Madonna or the Black Sun. The Black Sun, Isis, the Black Madonna, the grand central sun, or black hole, Jay Widener says. Artist Lee McCloskey, who has basically devoted his creative energy to bringing the goddess to life. It's absolutely profound, and if people talk to me, I can link you up to his website because it'll change your life. And so this is where the pineal gland connection is. And so this is what the exile is all about. This is what the agendas are all about. This is why there's chemtrails. The goddess energy connects us with the natural stargates because it's the black sun energy. Now, if we understand that the rituals are using that vril energy, that black sun energy, to use against us, and exile the goddess energy and actually target her in the rituals, they're targeting Gaia, which is the personification of her in a physical sense, to control her through weather modification and all these different sort of technologies. It's because they want that black sun energy to utilize and pump their dark occult technologies. And as long as we're separate from her and as long as we're plugged into something else, we are allowing it, and we're actually feeding this artificial matrix system, and it's blocking our ability to ascend and connect to the goddess that is the natural stargate. So what's the solution? Connect with the goddess energy. What does that mean? She lives within us. This is in our divine blueprint. These are our primordial parents. We're made of these energies. It doesn't matter how much genetic manipulation, how much dumbing down we've gone through, our consciousness is what restores things. Energy comes before matter. So when we start to activate our awareness, when we start to remember our origins and where we come from, that's when the DNA starts to activate again, because the dumbing down is very much metaphorical to the exile of the goddess energy. When she left the scene, we, in a sense, left the scene. And the way we restore it and we find it is to understand it's within us, to connect with Mother Earth, to connect with the cosmic mother, who's in relationship and harmony with the masculine, of course. So what's currently going on right now? Energy waves are continually being released from the galactic core of the Milky Way, called waves of love. They move out through the galaxy via the energy meridians of the toric field and return once again to the galactic core. The photon belt is a toric field of energy that emanates out from Alcyone in the Pleiades, and they have ley lines. The toric field of the Milky Way and the Pleiades are very connected. Electromagnetic energy is moving from the galactic core and electrifying the Pleiades photon belt, bathing its field in waves of love. On the solstice of the 21st of December 2012, our entire solar system will be in the photon band of light, receiving direct energetic transmission from Alcyone and from our galactic core of the Milky Way, the waves of love. The greater central sun, galactic core, is directly pulsing electromagnetic wave of love vibrations through our central sun, through our sun and into Earth, bringing through very high pulsations or frequencies of light energy to Earth. So, if we're feeling more love in our life, more synchronicities, more joy, despite the assaults, despite the attacks, despite whatever symptoms we have, we really are in alignment to what's going on, because, this is what's happening. Our emotional body is linked magnetically to the Earth. So humanity is now learning how to dispel all beliefs and behaviors that don't fit into the new paradigm. 0 point is the breaking point beyond which the insanity of the old time will no longer be able to survive. So, we can align ourselves to any belief. Some choose to align themselves to the most disturbing of beliefs. But true empowerment is about aligning ourselves to something that is actually happening, that is real, that we get to choose to align with. We can align ourselves to all this other fear. We can align ourselves to the belief that, we're trapped and we're stuck and we're this and that. but the power of source energy, nothing can trump it. Nothing is more powerful than that. And if we really did connect with that, we could look down on all this and just say, these are tinker toys, you know, these are just a bunch of like lost children playing with a bunch of toys, trying to scare the piss out of us. And it's up to us to not react with fear. It's up to us to react with empowerment and recognize the true energy that we're up against that is truly serving us. It's the cosmic connection we have. It's our parents. It's source energy itself, and it's pure unconditional love. No judgment, no fear, no control. Chemtrails seem to be creating a reverse grid to connect us with artificial intelligence rather than the photon belt and toric field, which would connect to the natural grid lines of Gaia and her vortexes and energy centers, and then our own chakra system. So if we know that like the toric field has ley lines and it's connecting, and this is my theory, I'm not reading this from someplace, there's a few things that I've browsed over that have helped me say, oh good, you know, that somebody else has written something that I resonate with. My kind of theory is that if we're seeing these lines and we're seeing a grid line, and there's a lot of dark rituals happening in very powerful places on the planet, you know, sacred sites, underground bases below sacred sites, and we know that there's, you know, a lot of dark ritual, a lot of negative frequencies being blown into those grid lines here on Earth, we can see that chemtrails is a part of that, because what it's trying to do is block the natural energies coming in, which connect to the ley lines of Gaia, connect to our chakra systems, and sort of stand as this veil. So instead of connecting in a real way to the energies of Ascension, we're connecting to the chemtrail grid lines, the artificial intelligence, rather than what we should be connecting with. And what it does is it creates a reverse grid, and that reverse grid is that kind of Antichrist agenda. And so that's all great and all, but what are they really targeting? I mean, it sounds all fancy, but they're targeting our connection with the goddess and sacred union. They're targeting very simple things that we can call back to ourselves and we can restore by simply refusing to give our power away and letting these things create that level of separation. It takes so much for them to try and create that separation that just our will and desire and commitment to not allow it to work is how we defeat all of this. It doesn't have to get any fancier than that, because this whole agenda, when it comes down to it, is to cause a lot of strife between us, to separate us, to lower us into enough vulnerability on a health level that we're easily controlled, and to disempower us completely. So the Venus transits, the Mayan calendar was based on this. It understood this. But back to the Anunnaki, the tree of life connected to the DNA. Now, the tree of life, when it's restored, is, you know, the 12-strand DNA, which opens up to even more than that, because the junk DNA holds countless strands. And so they tinker with this. They came to Earth sort of intervening. And like I said, you know, two different factions, one that's all about the behavior modification and control to veil us from the true source. Basically, this is what it comes down to. By manipulating both the portals, which are the natural stargates, to the planet, and the personal portals in our own DNA, the New World Order and its controllers hope to keep both us and the planet trapped here in the third dimension indefinitely for their own purposes. It's ridiculous. It's like, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's already happening. It doesn't even matter if it appears that way, because we're so much greater and more powerful. That's why they're doing it. So the only thing that they can do is come up with this incredible agenda to bombard us with frequencies that are going to split us and make it really difficult for us to connect and have that unity consciousness. But all it comes down to is the fact that that's what they're trying to stop. And they're doing so much and spending so much money to try and make that happen. But the thing is, when we commit ourselves, just like in a relationship, you handle all the bumps in the road, you handle all the attack, you handle all this stuff because you're firmly committed, nothing can get in your way. And if we have that sort of commitment to ourselves, to our higher nature, then no amount of attack can get in our way. And so this kind of launched this sort of DNA dumbing down and this sort of intervention. And that whole scenario sort of launched us into the tree of good and evil, where we can go through the rounds of reincarnation and understand the difference between good and evil to make empowered choices. But of course, they're taking advantage of the evil aspect of it. And I think, you know, we basically see like, okay, there's definitely evil, but there's a lot of good too. So our DNA is dumbed down to the point that it puts us in this sort of more physical experience, more lower density experience, so we can start to weigh, you know, these things. We can start to make choices. What sort of beings do we want to be? What do we believe in? So we're given every choice under the sun. We're being thrown as much evil as we're being thrown positivity, but ultimately we get to decide. And so I call it the lessons of duality. We're in this experience to learn the lessons of duality. And I call the dark agendas and just the Illuminati the dark teacher. Doesn't mean I'm excusing them, but we need to learn from it. We need to recognize that they're showing us what we're not. They're showing us something that can remind us of who we are. They're trying to say that we are not able to do something or that they've got all this figured out. But it's the dark teacher, because something in us can say, no, I don't think so. You know, our desire to stand up and just our ability to connect with who we really are is what that dark teacher can show us. If we start to give our power to it, then we're not really learning and we can't graduate. We can't initiate ourselves out of this. We're still in the classroom. And so reincarnation is proof that we can survive disasters. It's proof that we keep on going. So we don't need to get obsessed with the physical world and what's going to happen. We need to trust that, we know that we're infinite beings. We know that we keep on going. But the best thing that we can do is refuse to be controlled and refuse to give our power away and refuse to let go of any truth that we hold dear. And so the zodiac is sort of what we're given in the rounds of incarnations in this time loop we're in that they're trying to control. The zodiac is what gives us a connection to the planetary bodies in the cosmos, which is very much on our side. But with the planets, there's always a negative polarity, like Neptune that rules Pisces. The negative polarity of Neptune would be addiction, escapism, kind of losing one's mind, because the positive end of it is multidimensional, mystical, and very spiritual. So in this sort of society, it's hard to maintain that energy without going nuts because it's so expansive. So we learn the lessons of duality based on our experiences with our zodiac, the different forces that come into our life, where we get to weigh, the strengths and weaknesses and empower, the higher octave of the planetary bodies. And when we do that, we start to go into the center of the wheel, into the 0 point energy of it, and we release ourselves from the zodiac and from the time loop. I call it the wheel of necessity. And as an astrologer, when I do readings, I assist people in going into the 0 point, not how to manage and play with the planets and their rulership, because they are very archonic in a lot of ways, but to utilize the lessons and to understand what the message is so we can get to the center of the wheel and release ourselves from the time loop. Because the time loop, as far as I'm concerned, is very connected to the zodiac. So our story on a soul level. Now, that doesn't look like a happy relationship. I think we can all agree. This is kind of like what we're dealing with, very metaphorical to what we're dealing with on Earth, a controller, a technology sort of replaces Hades, but it's the same kind of thing. Exile the goddess energy, control Gaia, control the mother, control our connection with her, separate us from her. And so since those times, we all can relate because myths are the story of our soul. There's an exiled feminine energy within all of us that wants to come out. It's not about women becoming men in the world. It's about understanding the cosmic mother, the nurturing abilities, the unity, the desire to nurture and take care and to care about each other. That's the true mother energy. So they've been trying to separate us from her. They've misaligned the masculine and feminine to a programmed version, and most of this stuff, the divine feminine, has a completely different relationship with life than the programmed male and female. And I consider the divine masculine energy exiled as well, but programmed to be the controller, programmed to act as an agent of the dark side. So if one finds themselves controlling or wanting to suppress women, and they have those behavior patterns, you need to stop yourself and ask yourself, are you being an agent of the dark side? Are you doing exactly what they're doing to our planetary body? Are you a chemtrail in your relationship? And then for women, we have to recognize, are we victims? Are we playing the role of the victim who got abducted and taken away by Hades? Are we lesser than? We can't have victim consciousness. Women need to rise up and say, no, I don't think so. Because the minute you wake up in a relationship and you say, I refuse to be controlled anymore, that's when the whole game changes. And that's exactly what we need to do on the planet. That's why I like to break it down, because the larger picture we can relate to on the most micro level. It shows up in our relationships. It shows up in our relationships with our children and the way we deal with our communities and the way we deal with information. It all is just about as micro as it can get. And that's where we can create change in our own personal world. So the labyrinth is part of that underworld journey, and we all kind of go on this journey. People have had the dark night of the soul. For some of us, it's like God, dark night of the soul sounds like a vacation. It's like, God, can I have a break and just have a dark night of the soul, please? Like, whatever I've been going, I think some people can relate. So going into the mother womb is to move past the gatekeepers and controls to restore it to the womb of regeneration and fertile creativity. When we align with the mother energy, when we align with Gaia, and we step into our power and we don't let anybody else in, we start to connect with the regenerative forces and the forces that can act as the immune system and start to wipe some of this out. Because when we're out of balance and we're the programmed masculine and feminine, we're vulnerable to attack. When our physical bodies aren't in balance, we're vulnerable to disease. We're vulnerable to everything under the sun. So this whole journey has to do with kicking out the gatekeepers, kicking out the controllers, and getting one's power back. Because, you know, the feminine is within men and women. This is not, I'm not picking genders. This is not about anything but within all of us. It's about the relationship of the masculine and feminine within us. So the true darkness is divine power. The light brings in the seeds of our higher consciousness to birth new worlds. So darkness isn't something to be feared. It's the soul, it's the soil, it's the regenerative area where we plant seeds and we create new life. Darkness is beautiful, darkness is night. But rather than darkness being ruled by the controllers and gatekeepers, where we fear our power and look to the false light of the material world, I mean, that's what they want us, that's how they want us to relate to darkness. We're scared of it. Like, there's these controllers. We're afraid of ourselves. We don't want to go in the dark night of the soul. We don't want to look deeply into who we are. We want to, you know, deny that there's, you know, sprays in the sky. We want to deny that there's a shadow government. Not us, because we're the consciousness beyond chemtrails. But for most people, they don't want to get in touch with their power. They don't understand what power is. They give it away, they want somebody else to answer, they want somebody else to lead them and guide them. They're not embodied in the power. The true journey in the underworld is about purifying that region and stepping in that power and knowing that we're an extension of this planet, that we have those powers and abilities to regenerate and change the whole game. But rather than doing that, you know, we fear our power and we look to the false light of the material world, pleasures, excesses, money, you know, clothing, and, you know, anything that just represents light to us. And so that's the false matrix, whereas the true organic creation is about the light of our enlightened consciousness, planting seeds in the darkness and creating new worlds and realities that are far better than this one. So where we are divorced from nature and immersed in the artificial world. So I kind of read that wrong, but so that's basically what's happening, you know, this divorce from nature and then immersed in the artificial world, and people think it's normal. People think that this is all normal. So where the lower ET races show up? Government treaties. What are the origins of that? Well, people can say, well, I heard a rumor about Eisenhower. What do you think about that? I'm like, did he? What happened? I'm like, well, first of all, I wasn't there. Nobody in my family talks about it. I'm the only one who'll speak about UFOs, ETs, and the deeper layers of the military-industrial complex in the Eisenhower family. But from what Lisa Renee says, thanks. From what Lisa Renee says, who I think she's profound, her information, that the origins of these government treaties started with Aleister Crowley, Hitler, and Churchill, and that the whole gray alien, you know, technology thing and the whole making of the artificial timeline originated with them. Then FDR signed a treaty, and these treaties were to be renewed every 10 years. And by the time Eisenhower got into office, there was already the Draco reptilian control in the government, and he didn't have any real power. You know, there was a group called Ultra that basically made it happen. And so when you're trying, you know, I imagine that this is part of its thought processes, is that when you're fighting the Second World War or coming up with a strategy to try and stop the Nazis, and you're under that level of pressure and just all the insanity connected to just wanting to free us from these grips, you know, to discover that through Project Paperclip, that whole mentality moved into our American government, and that the president didn't have any real power, it became the power of the military and the Pentagon, that's when we hear warnings like the military-industrial complex. And, but actually it originated before him, and it's a good thing that he was able to warn us. I came into this family to truly take it down, give a few more warnings, but bring fruition to this. So that's where the lower ET races show up. They work with our governments and also in the religion distortions for control, so that we're constantly looking outside of ourselves, that we feel that we have original sin and we're looking to be saved and redeemed, when actually the ones that are distorting the stories are the evil ones. We are so hard on ourselves. And, you know, if we could compare like a bad day where we might have said the wrong thing to somebody to the evils that these folks are doing, we would never have low self-esteem or self-doubts again. So, you know, we're dealing with a planet, an organism just like the human body. And so we know when we're tested that we have powerful survival instincts. So many people might, I don't know about so many people, but might hear from their doctor, you'll never walk again. You have this disease. You have this doom scenario, this projection of you will not be okay. You have 5 months to live. I mean, how many people have we heard about in our lives that hear those kind of things? We're listening to the same sort of stuff online from people about where our future is taking us. But we're the people that say, you know what, I will walk again. You know what, we are not trapped. You know what, we are free beings. And it's that empowerment that gets those people through, that tells the doctor, I don't think so, that are considered miracles or medical miracles. We are the miracle. We just need to own it and know it. But when we're in imbalance of the masculine and feminine, the right and left brain, we invite attack and control. But the attack and control created the imbalance. So chicken or the egg, which came first? Doesn't even matter at this point, because as far as I'm concerned, the attack and the control came first, but because I'm not a victim, I take self-responsibility and I do everything I can to work from the inside out. So we can just, accept the loop, but not fall into victim consciousness. Stay empowered. The archons are parasites. To me, the reptilians are the demons of the patriarch. They want absolute control. That's their mentality. They're not fully developed beings. They never got in touch with the nurturing mammalian energies that we all hold. They want to infiltrate the higher races through hybridization programs and keeping us locked into lower base pleasures and consciousness, activating the reptilian aspect of our brain, or taking our power, which causes us to become victims. This is how they attempt to shut down the natural stargates. So as we know, we have both sides of our brains. So when we're watching TV or disturbing things, or we're programmed to think that success is money and fame, we're triggering that reptilian part of our brain. That's the reptilian energy wants us to be like them. If not, it wants us to be their slaves. So that part they're trying to trigger. That keeps us in lower consciousness. That keeps us locked in the time loop, which is what they want. So we have our choice, ego or higher self. Now, we can't get rid of the ego, but we can certainly allow the ego to listen to the higher self and take direction from the higher self, rather than the ego suppressing the higher self. Because the ego is very much like these agendas that we're dealing with, like the chemtrails. So arrogant and egotistical of them to be doing this to us. They're trying to suppress the higher consciousness of ascension. But look at us in our own lives. What do we do with our ego when we're dealing with each other and we're dealing with, whatever? Sometimes we choose to be an ego reaction, or I need to be right, or I want my way, and we're suppressing our neutrality, our unity consciousness, and our ability to be loving. That's when we start to act like them. We have to catch ourselves and see where we begin to act like them. Because if we just complain about them, it's not enough. We have to see, where have we bought into it? Where have we given our power away? Where are we veiling ourselves and becoming the chemtrails of our own higher consciousness and ascension process? So I find this all metaphorical, and so when we look at the sky and we see this disturbing stuff, we learn from it in a metaphorical way. How does this connect to us, and where are we doing the same thing to ourselves? Because it's within us to solve it. Archonic rulership, which are the archons, the Reptilian Agenda, is about ruling, the third chakra and below. The first chakra represents survival. They want us to all be in survival on a financial level. We rely on them. They have our food source. And their service to self. So we become either an agent or a victim, and it's the false light of Lucifer. The unified field of the higher self, the divine blueprint, is love and wisdom, higher chakras, service to others, divine light. Now, if that was the dominant energy, it would start to inform the lower chakras, and the lower chakras could express that energy in life and work with the light and dark. Like I said before, the enlightenment which plants seeds in the darkness and creates new realities. That's the scenario that should be happening. It's flipped around. So we're dealing with the pentagram, the inverted pentagram, the Lucifer agenda, service to self, dark ritual, manipulation, false matrix, controlled by matter, survival, addiction, victimhood. And so, this is what they do. It's the false light. It's the inverted pentagram that hasn't completed the journey. So where do we carry that energy? Where are we stuck in the darkness, or stagnating, or just not able to rise ourselves up again? We're in that inverted pentagram because these are our energies. The thing is, when we keep separating these things from us, then we're not responsible. We need to understand that we're in an alchemical process when it comes to Venus right now, because she works very closely with our planet, that we've fallen into matter, and it's a good thing because we're going to rise back up. And when we rise back up, we turn it upright, which is the goddess path. Venus transits, soul work, alchemy, turning the star upright again, service to others. Understanding that when we're capable of doing that, spirit becomes more powerful than matter. We're in our power, which means that matter in the physical world shifts and changes based on our intention on a higher level, rather than us being subjected to survival and emotional reactions and just everything that's an ego reaction to everything in our life. It's up to us to create this alchemy and to restore the true divine light of Venus. And that's the loving consciousness of the higher self. And that's why they use the inverted pentagram. That's why that's the symbol of the Illuminati. That's basically, this is what they're showing us. So the orbit and journey of Venus draws a perfect pentagram in the sky. Cosmically speaking, the alchemy is happening. This glyph right here, if it worked, would be showing a little cartoon thing of the orbit of Venus. It draws a perfect pentagram in the sky. So cosmically speaking, we are being supported by the path of Venus, which is connected to the divine feminine within all of us. We are being cosmically assisted to bring the inversions upright again, which opens the natural stargates, because the pentagram, earth, air, fire, and water, the fifth element is spirit. And when it's downward, it means spirit's trapped beneath. When we're empowered in our higher self and our higher consciousness, spirit is the dominant force, and then the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, are in relationship to us. We're in co-creation. We can work with the elements. You know, and when we can really do that, you know, can you like maybe like, there's a Bilderberg meeting, you want to like have a huge maybe fire or, you know, like a big windstorm. I mean, the thing is, you know, the reason that they're able to manipulate us is because we hold on either to the anger or the ignorance of what they're doing. We hold on to energy and we don't let it bounce back off to where it belongs. If we hold on to the anger, the resentment, the fear, the pain, and the anxiety, the depression connected to what these agendas are doing, we're not giving that energy back. We're holding it for them. The thing is, we have to bounce it back to them so that they deal with the backlash. And then, of course, if we're ignorant, we don't even notice anything that's going on, and we just accept that this is our reality. So this is, you know, connected to the zodiac, and we're moving beyond this. So what does it look like today? Where are the traps? On a relationship level, we're distracted by the programmings, the dramas, and the issues of the heartache and pain. Everybody's been in a relationship before here, I'm sure. When you're having a bad day with your partner, isn't it like the worst hell ever? It's just like, oh my God, you know, I can't stand it. Like, that's why I'm all about harmony. I just cannot stand the negative energy of misunderstandings or fighting or drama. It is the most uncomfortable, god-awful thing ever, as far as I'm concerned. So that's part of it. So, you know, chemtrails, toxins, this and that, have a bad day with your partner. I mean, that's almost worse. People are willingly hand their free will and power over. It's like the Queen Jubilee, the royal family. It's like, these are the very people that are oppressing us. The Pope and all the money and the patriarchy, and it's like, you know, he's the most powerful spiritual leader in the world right now, and it's like, I don't even want my kids to even go near him. It's like, I don't get a feeling of God. And so this is where we're giving our power away. We're seeing that, you know, we're moving from farms to big cities because they can't grow food anymore. It's all, you know, going to eventually maybe be like completely contaminated so that they can push us into the cities because it's easier to control us. The superhighway systems, they'll start to block us from being able to be, you know, even in nature. They function on a need-to-know basis. Most don't even know what they're serving, but a lot of them do. The government needs to be abandoned. This is a beast that needs to be starved. On a society level, we watch TV, it distorts body image, it creates poor health, it lowers our frequency. They actually do stuff in underground bases to produce a frequency that they move through the television and different, you know, towers out there that I don't even want to tell you it's so disturbing. I don't have proof, but they will record tortured beings and take the sound of it and move it through our television. So when we watch television, we get in a lower consciousness, we feel angry, agitated, and we just soak up the programmings because we're in such a low consciousness that we're not empowered to be able to see through it. Some of us are, and we can watch a good show here and there, but, you know, if you have an argument with your partner around commercial time, you might want to, like, check it. Since they understand the important role of frequency, they use really low levels that keep us locked into anxiety, depression, and anger. That's kind of what the smart meters are all about, and this and that. So that means that we get to have extra fun. To counteract all this negativity, we need to crank up the love, crank up the fun, and do it louder than we've ever done before, because this is a frequency battle. And this is what this event represents to me. These are the most uplifting, amazing things ever. We can share the most disturbing things ever, and I feel so connected to all of you. I feel so alive. And it's like, and I'm showing a picture of the towers falling. So, you know, false flag agendas to lower consciousness and create false war on terror. It's all a part of the ritual. It's all a part of leading us to believe that we need to look to our leaders to help us solve a problem that they created, which was the Mars agenda. When they asked me to go to Mars and I researched who these people were, I discovered they were connected to HAARP and connected to all the technologies that create the catastrophes they want to run from. And so when I discovered this, and it was very hard to discover it because it was all hidden, they had cover jobs, but I wouldn't give up on my research, and I finally found it. I realized it's the same sort of scenario. Let's rescue and take you off planet to escape the cataclysms, but they're the ones that are pushing the buttons. So this is just a good quote to throw in there just to like take a breath. I think that people want peace so much that one of these days government had better get out of their way and let them have it. What we don't see, what's behind all this, and just the media obsession and just how some people, just grab our attention, pop stars or sports stars or, just different scenarios happening in the news of people getting shot. What creates all this news? What creates all this attention on the media and all this sort of need to engage in the media and everything that's going on? Well, there's mind control projects behind it. This one, I have a monarch butterfly, monarch programming, Project Monarch. It is the most disturbing thing ever. I know people that are trying to recover from it. It is not a joke. And anybody who thinks it's a joke, we can look on the internet and just want to say, no, that's too much. But when you actually meet these people, I do readings and I try and help them through. It is unbelievable. Ritual abuse is what allows the possession of the elite. It's multi-generational abuse. It's like a boot camp to become evil. Most of the people that are running this country, most of the people that are like pop stars out there, basically have, since they're children, are put in these scenarios in order to embody something that they want us to feed into and give our power to. That's how sick and twisted it is. But their ritual is not merely for ceremonial purpose or gratuitous horror. Their rituals are designed to rewire the energy fields and grids of the planet to fundamentally affect human consciousness. The rituals these bloodlines have performed in the ancient world are the same as the rituals they perform now. These reptilians and their allies have corrupted Earth DNA with their own, and this genetic infiltration lies dormant until it is activated by the vibrational fields generated by the Illuminati secret society rituals, and others in the public eye, like the carefully designed coronations and official ceremonies, certainly those of the various religions. So everything that we see, a lot of it is just a big staged ritual, especially if death is involved. It's not real news. It's all planned, and like Roseanne said yesterday, we're dealing with not a broken system, a fixed system, because it's rigged. And we see that in everything, and the symbolism is out there. It's right in our faces. So are the lines in the sky, and still, it's not enough for people. The facade of the false matrix. The abuser is also the healer. The destroyer also acts like the healer. The attacker becomes the rescuer. The infiltrator becomes the liberator. The disease causer becomes the antidote. The terrorist becomes the leader. So they create all these scenarios and they step in like they're going to come and save the day. And it's all a lie because they're not. And so we're left to wonder, gosh, that disaster was really intense. And most of us in this community, I wonder if it was Mother Nature or HAARP. And then we spend a lot of time trying to figure it out. HAARP can be used in conjunction with chemtrails in order to modify the weather. Dispersed metallic particles such as aluminum, barium, and strontium may increase the atmosphere's conductivity and therefore enhance HAARP's weather modification performance. All the weather control has huge drain on the planet's inner sun, which directly powers it. When our inner sun suffers, so do we. This central sun, if liberated, is the key to the regeneration of the planet and all life on it. It is the source of our prana, or life, which it gets directly from our greater sun and the steps down in safe measure to distribute planet-wide. We're dealing with the core of this planet is a sun. We're dealing with the sun in the sky, the grand central sun, and our own inner sun. In order to assist, we need to do the inner work because they're all very reflective of each other. If we're not empowered in our solar Christ consciousness, if we're not embodied in our inner truth, if we don't recognize that God is within us as well as outside of us, then this is what suffers. This is why they're able to get away with this, because we're so disempowered. The ruling elite have devised chemtrails as a means of covertly microchipping us all in order to create antennas inside of us via nanotechnology so as to make us totally controllable via a psycho-civilized, electronically mind-controlled society. We got to crank up the music, the tunes, the rock and roll, that helps. Using HAARP microwave antennas, the National Security Agency can establish a seamless computer link direct to our brains, but first they're using chemtrails to get the nanoparticles into us, which are reassembling in our bodies to form the antennas. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. This new era has already started with the forced re-engineering of our planet and us humans. Chemtrails are not only changing the environment we live in, but are changing us from the inside out. Planetary re-engineering goes beyond controlling the weather. The people behind geo-engineering are after the human race. And that's the introduction to transhumanism. Transhumanists intend to replace all natural laws and their own set of rules with their own set of rules, which will make it easier to control it all. It is nothing more than an agenda to destroy humanity and human nature. It seeks to devolve and enslave humans in a way that will be irreversible. Well, first of all, in the beginning, when I showed you the slide of the grand central sun, the black hole, the black sun energy as the goddess, you can't destroy that. You can only create the illusion of separation and have people buy into it. That is what they do. The deception allows us to hand our free will over. The minute we call it back and we realign, none of these technologies can get to us. This is what Dr. Dream was talking about yesterday with the protection of our field. And I'll get more into that in a little bit. All weather is controlled. One of the purposes of HARP and the shadow government is to devastate the U.S. economy so that it can be fully absorbed or reconstructed into the heinous New World system. So when we talk about, oh, the dollar, this and that, the money, the economy is crumbling, this isn't because the dark side is necessarily losing. They've got technologies with Looking Glass and other things that have this all planned and worked on, and they try and stay one step ahead of us. But after surviving the Mars recruitment, and they threatened to kidnap me, they attacked me with weapons and all sorts of stuff. It was a very, very difficult thing to escape. They're not that smart. We can outsmart them. If I can do it, you guys definitely can, and we already have, so. Our computer age and the weather wars are some of the products of this new planetary energy being released. It's been said that whoever controls the climate or environment controls the world. The global elite are trying to do this with HARP, but it is doomed to fail. The only real solution is to stop tampering with nature and let the planet come into its own. Alpha waves in the human brain are between 6 and 8 hertz. The wave frequency of the human cavity resonates between 6 and 8 hertz. All biological systems operate in the same frequency range. The human brain's alpha waves function in this range, and the electrical resonance of the Earth is between 6 and 8 hertz. Thus, our entire biological system, the brain and the Earth itself, work on the same frequencies. If we can control that resonant system electronically, we can directly control the entire mental system of humankind. Mind control, agenda tracking, and surveillance. Electronic control and artificial intelligence chips, beast computers, man merges with machine. It's all imitator technology. What they do is they're able to take prints. This is what the imitator is. There's the generator, there's the originator, then the generators, which are like the aeons, and then the archons, which are like the imitators. The archonic system is using imitator technology, utilizing our abilities, turning it into a technology so that we look to the technology rather than ourselves, thinking these are great breakthroughs. We're actually the breakthrough, and they're using our intelligence and our abilities and transferring it into these tools so that we're looking to the tools. And what's behind those tools is very, very dark beings. We are made of all this stuff. And that's the thing with the imitation, and it goes in all different directions. They're imitating, the model of masculine and feminine energy. They're imitating everything, but they're giving it enough of a truth to engage us, but then they twist it just enough to distort our connection and to wreak havoc on our own inner balance and our own relationships and our own ability to connect with one another. So the president of the Morgellons Research Group, Candy Griffin, writes, Morgellons is not a disease, it is a process. It is a form of force-directed evolution of the human genome. It is the fetal stage of transhumanism, and it is upon us. So that's really not quite what we're thinking about when we think about Mother Earth. That's not where she belongs. Diseases associated to nanoparticle exposure. So they get us all into these sort of, compromised immunities, and then they introduce the solution, which is the transhumanism agenda. But it's all part of that, rescuer and destroyer rescuer type scenario. But here's some, great solutions: essential oils, apple pectin, supergreens, bentonite clay, frequency devices, parasitic bowel cleanse, alkaline-based foods, chelation therapy, and herbs. It's just a matter of informing ourselves and knowing how to protect ourselves. As more people become realigned with their original 12-strand DNA, as there is an increase in the planet's frequency, the urgency to control this reconnection to our original selves has become an urgent part of the New World Order's agenda. This means we must increase our desire to develop our Merkaba, change our diet, our relationship dynamics, our priorities and beliefs and lifestyles. Whatever we're being attacked with, we counteract with empowerment, with wisdom, with love. Anything that insults us, we fire back with something beautiful, and that's how we protect it. So, ascension into the fifth dimension. Organic ascension. God has seeded us with divine potential. Cosmic law and tree of knowledge helps us to discover this again. Archons are jealous and want to play the gods by keeping us trapped in the time loop. They want to exile her and control her through technology and separate her children from her. The beings living in the 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions, they radiate positive energy and have an interest in our 3D world. They draw their energy from higher dimensional source. higher dimension source, rather than steal our power like the reptilians with deception and manipulation. These are like the guardian races. We're connected to all this. This is like our immune system. We have ethereal bodies. We're connected on a higher chakra level to everything. There's no aliens. There's no us and them. We're connected to everything. We have the Anunnaki energy in us. We have all these agendas in us. We get to decide in our own personal bodies what we choose to empower. And when we make the right decisions and align ourselves correctly to the right forces, we send out that frequency, and our frequency is powerful. So when in this frequency battle, when we choose the stronger energy, a higher dimensional frequency, these lower density, fourth dimensional technologies don't stand a chance. If we existed in our true power, there would be no need for a money system and we wouldn't be ruled by the elite. We are meant to find self-sufficiency. Spiritual masters can live without food or shelter or money, can even produce it at will, but we have lost our way and given our power to others. Our history has been rewritten and it is hard to remember. New Age deceptions further trap us. So when we're looking at guidebooks to remember who we are because of this reincarnation stuff, it's very hard when they've all been distorted and rewritten to disempower us. So we need to remember in a whole different way. We need to go deep within. We need to really just know ourselves and connect with Mother Earth. It's very, very simple. And I lived on the road for a long time. I was a wilderness expedition trained in that field. So I know all about generating miracles and keeping oneself alive and testing what it means to align with certain energy and what is the result. And just sort of playing with that a little bit. And so I don't just share this like, wow, you know, it sounds really good. It's like I've seen it, I've lived it, I've noticed the difference between what constriction does and what manifests and what being open and embodied does, and how I was able to pull things out of the ground. I was able to manifest stuff. I'd like to be able to do it now. I think I'm a little like off these days, but we all have those abilities. And so this is, you know, part of the blueprint we're returning to. Sacred union is crucial. That other picture that I showed you of that relationship not really working, and just how we know how difficult that can be, and it can ruin our day. Like, you know, do we have to even like show up for work on days like that when we're having strife? It's the commitment to sacred union, to saying we're going to create archetypal harmony. Whatever these archetypes and all their power struggles are, we're not going to become them. We're going to be the embodied beings that create that resolution, that are therapists, in a sense, to the divorce between us and nature and the God and goddess union. We're the ones that get to restore this relationship. We don't need to look outside of ourselves to see what the condition of the world is. We got it all right in here. And the choice to just come together and treat each other with respect and stop all the BS and all the programmings and what they've done to us is true empowerment. If all these agendas are created to cause separation, poison us, distract us, deceive us, and cause us to fear, then counteract it with unity, consciousness, good health, discovering inner truth, finding inner balance, and trusting your higher self. Energy comes before what manifests. And then once we do that, then we attract those compliments, we attract those partners, we attract like-minded people. And that's why we're here, because we've already started that work. So all of you are just so amazing, and we just are amazing for that. Kundalini Rising raises the lower serpentine energy. The Kundalini Rising, when you think about it, reptilian energy is a serpentine energy. It's a very low-based serpentine energy. But the rising of the Kundalini connects all chakras. It takes that reptilian energy and it turns it into the primordial dragon energy. And the goddess represents the dragon queens, and all those different energies are connected with the true power on that level. Since some of the new strands of DNA are actually electromagnetic or multidimensional in nature, DNA is also sensitive to not just earthly electromagnetic fields, but it also responds to the body's soul nature. Soul nature is the vibrational, etheric, astral composition or signature of a particular soul. Genetic, structural, and soul nature are intimately coupled. A change in one can lead to a delayed change in the other. So the soul work actually does change our DNA. We don't need to like restore ourselves by going too far outside of anywhere. We just need to go inside, and we need to like recognize our beautiful qualities and our abilities and start to awaken them, because our DNA will say, well, thank you, and it'll start to activate. It's a soul alchemy. We are made up of all archetypes and dimensions and aspects of creation. Return to the mother and father where the balance of life is held, lifting the veil of the lower creator God. The lower creator God simply acts as a veil. We believe in that veil by living a life of duality, by having broken relationships, by not taking care of ourselves, by reaching for instant gratification. I mean, we complain a lot, but we don't really pay attention to how we're buying into it and how we're actually keeping it alive. But this is where it's at. It's the soul alchemy. It's doing that inner work. That's what changes the way we relate to these archetypes and energies. It's not outside of us. We're reflecting the health of the collective conscious. The health of the collective conscious is revealing what it, you know, how healthy it actually is. But we're not subject to the fate that they're setting up. I mean, because they're choosing to maybe stay asleep doesn't mean we're doomed because of it. We'll still make it. Wisdom keepers and elders, that's the real government. If we're going to listen to anybody, let's listen to our elders. Let's listen to those that are truly connected with the earth, that have so much wisdom to pass on to us. This is all part of the Ascension timeline. Understanding ourselves, the physical body, the higher self, the body elemental, the Christ itself, the multidimensional self, the cosmic self, the universal self, the I am. Restoration of the tree of life. After all these lessons of duality, it's about restoring that immortality, the DNA activation of the soul work, being able to, again, come and go from the physical world by choice, higher dimensional worlds. We are being changed physically from carbon-based beings with 2 strands of DNA into crystalline beings with 1,024 strands of DNA, because only crystalline substances can exist on higher dimensional levels. It doesn't just get handed to us, it's an initiation process. So they try and stunt the initiation process. It's called accretions. Every time we're about to take a step or take an upgrade or advance and expand, there's usually something that comes, some crisis or some attack or something in the news to stop that process. Because as we're working on the upgrading and the ascension, these distractions will come in and throw us off. So we can't be thrown off. No matter what we read in the news, no matter what's happening, we have to understand that it's specifically designed so that we miss those opportunities to take a step up. I think people can say, in their lives, oh, I just took a big step up, or I was about to do this, and we almost had a breakthrough, and then it's just it goes back to square zero, and it's like, okay, get back up again. Focused intention is so important. Our minds are absolutely powerful. And I love what Dr. Dream said yesterday. It's the way we view things. I mean, what we believe and what we choose to project on what we're dealing with is everything. And when we start to focus our intentions, our creative energy knows exactly what to do. If we don't tell it what to do, it's going to start to match our confusion, and it's going to manifest more confusion. We are the skippers of our vessel. Our creative energy is the crew. We need to tell it what to do. And then it'll listen. If we don't, like I said, it'll start to match whatever mood we're in, and it doesn't help. Focus intention can turn chemtrails. There's something called sylphs. These are elemental beings in the sky. When we ask them for help, they can start to disperse these things. We are so powerful. The real tool that we have is our imagination and our creativity. If you can think it and imagine it, start to empower it, especially if it's going to make your life better and the planet better, because these things are out there. There's a website here where somebody really goes into it. And they neutralize the chemtrails. So that's all possible. Here's a gathering at Star Knowledge that me and Dr. Dream spoke at. Look at all the orbs. I mean, we're not alone here. We're surrounded by all sorts of energies, very helpful energies. And so if we can see that in a picture, then we can trust that there's something in the sky that if we direct our focus intention on, can help eat this garbage up. People use orgone and different things like that. The electromagnetic field of the heart creates that protection. Nothing can penetrate that when we're living from our heart, when we're in that unity consciousness. The reason the agendas are pulling us into duality, broken relationships, and the television mind controls is because that's how the toxins come in. That's how the chemtrails affect us. That's how we get plugged into the artificial matrix. When we take a step and recognize what they're trying to stop in us, and we choose to empower what they're trying to stop, that's when the protection comes in. Okay. So there were meetings with the Venetians, supposedly, in the 1960s. Okay, so we hear about the Greys, we hear about the treaties, we hear about all this disturbing stuff, but nobody talks about the fact that Eisenhower met with the Venetians. He indicated that his race of people lived and dwelled underground, and that many of the planets throughout the universe sustained life in the same manner. He also mentioned the waves of aliens who would land around the world to help with the Earth's seemingly insurmountable problems. He stated that a group from a distant planetary system would be coming to give aid and data to help the Earth's progress. Val Thor spoke of Christ's presence in the universe and that it was heartwarming to see Christ's advanced teaching continuing. Okay, well, this is a quote from something that might have happened. I don't have any proof of it happened, but the connection with the Venus and the importance of Venus right now is really big. They suppressed all this. They said, if you disclose this stuff, they won't need us anymore. There was a lot more that was shared, so a big cover-up ended up happening surrounding this. But this was after the agendas that have to do with the treaties, that have to do with the military's use of all these alien technologies. This is afterwards. There's a hopeful message in this. It didn't all stop with the treaties, and we're dealing with the result of this artificial timeline. There's much more positivity out there than we can imagine. And this is one little glimmer of it. Oops. So, Ascension. Ascension is accreting frequency bands of energy into the personal template, one frequency band at a time. Accretion occurs with every in-breath and out-breath we take. Like I said, just the upgrading, just the ability to expand. But for one to be able to ascend to the next density level up, there has to be enough energy coming through the gates and into the planetary grids to allow the beings to be able to accrete to a high enough energy level to be able to release the locks and seals that are in between strands. Because the fallen angelic races have compromised the gate system going vertical within the time matrix. This means that passing through those gates would lead one into black hole fall status. Not only have they compromised the gates in the solar system, but the entire time matrix. So basically, this is what I'm talking about when I say the 5D Ascension timeline has been hijacked. When we are ready to even step into that, there's something that's capable of trapping us, and that black hole fall status has to do with black hole technologies. This means that if something was not done, the life forms, consciousness within the time matrix would be trapped. And because of the damage the fallen races have done to this time matrix, they have managed to force it into alignment and are working to change its base pulse rhythm to that of their black hole and then drag the entire thing into their black hole system. That's basically similar to the transhumanism agenda. But they are not able to get all of it because the Christic races that still remain here in the time matrix in the solar system on this planet. Christic races from other time matrices have opened up their gates and through a very specific route that would require seeing the map to understand are sending in the higher energies of source via their gate system to all life forms in this time matrix who still hold a template that will allow them to plug into those frequencies. It is as if they have sent us an extension cord of energy to keep us from falling in energy holding capacity. So basically, when people say, I think somebody said the other day that we are cut off, or a lot of researchers are saying the planet will not ascend, they've decided that it's not going to happen, right? Well, this, I don't know who wrote this, but I do believe it's Ashiana GM because it sounds like her languaging, so I'm going to give her credit anyway. And I found it because it's the thoughts I already had. The way I do research is I come up with something, and then I Google to see if anybody agrees with me. So I knew that, most people, I don't really think the masses are necessarily going to make it, but I'll still empower that anything's possible. But that, due to, some of the paths that we've taken, escaping the Mars recruitment and going in the underworld journey, and many of you who are here today in the paths that you've taken, we've managed to keep the natural stargates opening, that we're holding this space, we're holding this frequency. And what we're trying to do right now is take as many with us as possible, just like they're trying to take as many souls in order to empower their dark agenda. So we're going to be okay, but we have that empathy and compassion. We want to take as many with us as possible. We see what's happening. We're not holding a lot of fear. We know that we're moving into that extension cord and that we're going to be on the ascension timeline, but for many they're going to still be locked in this time loop. So we're doing all we can to awaken people. We don't get appreciated for it very often. People think we're nuts, but we're doing the best we can. But I do believe and I do know that we're all okay and that we've been holding, ourselves open. The general consensus of planet Earth has decided not to go on with the ascension process, whether this be through coercion or their own free will. It doesn't really matter. There is now only the choice left to the individual, whether he or she wants to take that next step for themselves into a higher dimensional state. So it's up to the individual. If anybody tells you that's not possible, we're trapped, we're doomed, say, no, that's your reality, that's not my reality. We each have a choice. And this whole presentation was about those choices and about these agendas, and it's not as complicated as we think. Anytime we buy into the program, by negating our better nature, divine power, and spiritual love, we wreak havoc on our lives. We direct nature with our higher, greater minds. Any less draws in the controls of duality and the ego attachments, competitions, toxins, negative energy, and falls from grace. They exist within and create the false matrix that acts like a spider web that chemtrails seem to represent. The minute we lose that awareness and that unity consciousness and we fall into that lower mindset, that's the spider web of chemtrails. When we choose to stay beyond that, that's when we're connecting to the photon belt and the real grid lines that are going to assist Mother Earth in our chakra system, and it's going to birth a whole new world that's already pretty much waiting for us. When we reach deeper and higher and choose to empower love in the moment, we see our world ascend and the magic pour in. And the sticky stuff, the lower reactions, the dark agendas, the hell dimensions and battles dissolve in the winds of time. It is in our hands to ascend. So thank you very, very much. It's just been wonderful. I don't know if I have times for question and answers, but I hope you feel a little bit more positive. Okay.